Hi, everybody. Welcome back to LGBTQ and A, and I'm here with Katie, and we're going to talk about her identity, what's up with her, all of her things, learn a little bit about her. So I'm not going to hog the spotlight, though. Katie, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you. What's your deal?
What is my deal? Excellent question. Hi,
Yeah.
I'm Katie. I know Mike through Lawrence, awesome school.
Mhm.
I studied Chinese and some anthropology there, and now I work at a nonprofit that helps startups connect to resources and grow and things. But yeah, I'm bad at intros.
That's okay. I'm pretty bad at them too. So that's why I usually just go like, and you talk now. But it doesn't work so well when we're both not great at it.
Back to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
cool. Okay, so this whole series is about identity. So we're gonna be talking a little bit about your identity. We can talk a little bit about my identity. I can start. I'm a straight white male. I'm very vanilla in the terms of identity. Um, if you looked up people who are who you'd think were lived in like a redneck area of the country, you might see a picture of me because that's what I look like. Especially with the beard. Maybe I should shave. That's okay.
You apart though.
Well, yeah, that helps. But if I did live down there, I probably wouldn't wear these in public. Yeah. What about you, Katie? What can you tell us about yourself?
Sure. So exact label I use kind of changes and still in the process of figuring things out, but historically and generally the term I identify most with and use is aromantic, which means I don't typically or very rarely experience romantic attraction towards somebody. I also fall under the like asexual umbrella, so I tend to gravitate towards the term gray sexual, which means also like very rarely or under certain circumstances experience sexual attraction. But for me, the aromantic part of my identity has been what's more present, I guess. So I guess a broad term that can encompass kind of both those things is aspec, which is just somewhere in the spectrums of aromantic and or asexual.
Under that umbrella of stuff. Awesome.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm not as familiar with those different identities. And you kind of explain them a little bit, but or I guess being a person who does feel romantic feelings often and does feel sexual attraction, I guess it's really odd for me for people not to. So has that really like affected your relationships with people, or is that just something that you're used to, so it's not a big deal, or how does that really like affected you kind of coming to that realization and then moving forward from it?
Well, I mean, I think for me, a long time I didn't know these things were things, and that's something I think a lot of people in these communities have faced, because these are fairly new terms, like or at least there's now starting to become more visible, but certainly like when we were growing up, never heard of it. And I don't think I heard the term asexual. My earliest memory of hearing that was in summer camp in high school, and one of my friends mentioned some rock star was asexual and how cool that was, and I had no conception of what that meant. I didn't hear aromantic until freshman year of college, but you might have to repeat the question because
So how did that like realization, how did you get there, and like what where did you go from there after you've realized all this?
Sure. So for me, since my personal experience with like romantic attraction has been kind of tricky, almost like I have experienced having crushes on people, but not like very, very rarely. Like I had a crush on somebody in 8th grade. I had a crush on somebody my freshman year of high school, but otherwise not so much. So then for me, being an aromantic person, just like having experienced that and then going many, many years without having anything like that and seeing, you know, everyone in high school like dating and talking about who's dating who and that person is cute, la la la. It's became what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. So a lot of people, I think, aromantic, asexual people experience that there's something wrong with me. There's something broken. I thought it was like, oh, I have to be more comfortable with who I am, and then I'll get crushes on people or something. But
sure, right,
that's how it works. Yeah. So then when I finally did hear the term in freshman year, it took a while to like learn a little bit about it, and then it was a long process of deep denial, I think.
sure, right,
because I think, well, just our society is so, everything is, you know, you're going to grow up, you're going to get married, you're going to have 2.5 kids, and you know,
the half one
Disney
is very
movie.
important.
Yeah, that's the most important kid. Someone says they don't have a favorite kid, they're lying. At 0.5. I'm pretty sure. But I also just lost my train of thought.
Yeah. Society. Yeah.
Society.
Yes.
Yeah.
Society's fault. I blame them.
Yeah. So there's this really great term, and I'm not used to saying it out loud because it's generally just like the ace and arrow communities are very online, so it's a lot of typing. But normativity, which is basically this societal belief that, you know, romance and like have like the partnered existence, having one partner is like the pinnacle of existence. You know, that's what everybody is once in their life and is aiming towards. So growing up surrounded by Disney films and everything, like this is something I must have in my life and want in my life. Who doesn't want to fall in love and all of that?
Right.
So it was a long time of, oh, I can't be aromantic because that would be terrible, and I want that in my life still.
Right.
But then trying to convince myself that that wasn't the case, and that was not a fun time. But eventually, coming to terms and like finding like-minded people and like other people who shared that experience and became more comfortable, and especially as like got plugged into online communities and stuff helped too.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, you know, growing up, right, like even like especially for kids our age, because we're so old, like, you know, people didn't really talk about anything that wasn't heteronormative. And so it's always been interesting because because for me, like I didn't have to go through any of these kind of experiences. Like I've always been very comfortable with whatever was heteronormative because that's what I am. But like, you know, oftentimes whenever like nowadays when I see like in things that are inclusive, you know, like or like whenever I see something online, like I know like there's this big push that like Elsa was a lesbian and everybody was like, oh yeah, that's gonna be so great. And I was like, you know, and I think about like all the people who are gonna like benefit from that kind of inclusion. But I feel like I haven't really seen anything about like aromanticism or asexuality being portrayed in media because it's so against that partnership thing. Because like for people who are like gay or lesbians, at least they like want a partner, so they're like, well, they're not like us but they're kind of like us, so I guess that's okay. So do you feel like underrepresented in that way, or do you like wish that there was like, you know, some character on a TV show that was like you?
I mean, absolutely. Who doesn't want to see themselves represented? Representation matters so much.
Right.
For a lot of people in the community, it's kind of like the fanfic communities where you just like
Sure.
a character and like they've not been like explicitly described as asexual, aromantic, because that doesn't really happen.
Right.
Except for like a couple of cases, like character Jughead from Riverdale is
sure.
supposed to be asexual, and maybe a couple other things. But I think, you see someone who doesn't experience like, for maybe a lot of their arc, doesn't have a significant other or show whatever, like
romance,
like Elsa maybe. And sure. So it's like, oh, maybe she's aromantic, maybe she's asexual, and then it's like, or ends up being something else, which is also totally awesome. Or in other examples, or like they don't have that arc, and then at the very end, they're like, oh wait, we need romance, quick,
right,
shove them,
jam it in there at the end.
Yeah,
ruin your dreams.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely a lack of representation.
Yeah. So studio executives.
There's an example though. One of the characters comes out as asexual in BoJack, Todd. So.
Awesome. BoJack Horseman.
Mm-hmm. Todd in BoJack Horseman comes out as asexual.
I haven't watched that yet, but I want to. So
it is very dark.
It's just moved up my list because of that.
Yeah.
So, awesome. So what other characters has like your community like latched onto? Because I know like certain groups, like they're never like any evidence necessarily that they are, but like I know like lesbians latch on to like Elsa, and I know like Velma has become like a really big one recently for them. So which I think is fantastic. It's like who do aromantic and asexual people like think is one of them?
Well, one I've seen most recently is the main character from The Queen's Gambit. I saw someone in one of the many Facebook groups I'm in. People think she kind of looks like she's aromantic. She has some, maybe not necessarily asexual, but like people are arguing for that. I'm not sure. Oh, another big one, at least until some of the later seasons, is Doctor Who, because he just doesn't have those like romantic or whatever relationships until he gets married.
That had to happen.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I think he's been one of the other big
ones.
Yeah, examples. Which is not to say that if this is, I think, a big misconception about aro or ace people too. Like, so for a lot of aromantic people, like some people do want to have a relationship, others don't. It just means that they don't experience that attraction. But some people like having romantically coded behaviors. Like some people like to kiss or hold hands or cuddle, or be in a relationship. That can mean lots of different things. So who's to say that Doctor Who still isn't aromantic or something?
There you go. Awesome. So where do you fall on that? Are there certain trappings of relationships that you still enjoy or want, or are you just kind of like with all that?
Yeah. So I tend to be more romance favorable, I guess. So I like kissing, cuddling. I'm like a very affectionate person.
Right.
And for me, the important thing is having I like having close emotional bonds with people. So have those connections, and I actually have a partner currently. But for me, it's like a romantic, like butterfly type deal, but it's a committed like relationship where help support each other and things like that.
Awesome. I had no idea. So that's congratulations. Several, probably a long time late, but congratulations anyway. Awesome. Cool. Let's see. I had things in my head I wanted to talk about, but my head doesn't always hold on to those things.
I know the feeling. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, I work with kindergartners and first graders now, so my attention span has shortened to match theirs, and it's terrible. Okay, let's see here. Oh, okay. So once you figured all this out, what was kind of your process for deciding like how you were going to tell people and how you were going to present that to your family and your friends and everybody else?
Sure. So for me, the first time I came out was in my junior year. I was finally like starting to feel more comfortable, or like at least coming to terms with this is who I am. And there are a lot of things that I wanted to, talk to my friends about and tell them. But for me, I wanted to tell my parents first because we're pretty close. And I felt like I couldn't tell anyone else before I like had the courage to talk to my parents and I wanted to do it in person. So I like waited till spring break, I think, to have that first conversation. But kind of leading up to that, like I remember, being in choir and different things. You're like singing some song and you're discussing the meaning and stuff. And it's about love, of course, because everything's about love.
That's what people sing about.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, this is about, having a romantic partner or like this deep romantic love, and me sitting there and going, this isn't the only kind of love, and just like simmering inside, but not saying anything because private hadn't come out or anything.
Right.
But
what a way to do it, though, if that had been the moment where it just kind of boiled over and you're just like in the middle of it. No!
Yes.
Hold my microphone. I'm about to yell at all you. You get it.
We're staying it on the very high note just constantly. But yeah, but one thing that kind of helped me get to that comfortable place was in junior year, I took a class with Ginger in cinema. And okay. It was fantastic. But it was a lot of, in analyzing all these films, a lot of Freudian, like, oh, it's all their sexual desire and blah, 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 and which I think is already frustrating, but then it's like, not everyone is like that. Not everything is about sex, and not everything is about, wanting whatever person. Just another like rising fever pitch of this is highly representation. Freud is very annoying. But we had a final project in the class where we could write a paper or do whatever project we wanted, basically, like with others. So I had a good friend in the class, and we had some conversations, and neither one of us was out to the other one, but it became clear that like she was ace, like arrow ace. That's a big aromantic ace, asexual abbreviation there. It's easy to slip into lingo.
No, that's fine. Go ahead and use it.
But she was arrow ace and I was aromantic, and we're both kind of like hinting at things. And I asked her if she wanted to do a project together, and she's like, oh, I'm actually gonna do this project on like trying to recut films to show like the asexual like experience. I was like, what? Okay, hey, let's work together. So we got to
I'm gonna hop on that bandwagon.
Oh my god, like I think that was actually the first time I knew that about her, or like that was like the first like big clue, and blew my mind entirely. And so we decided to work on it together, and we took some of the films we watched in class, like Brokeback Mountain and Rear Window. Rear Window, I think so. It was guy with the binoculars just creepily staring at lady across his courtyard. And then
sounds like a film a very lonely person made.
oh yeah, just height of like male gaze and creepiness. And then the third one we did was Top Gun. Yeah.
Top Gun. Either one.
Yeah, so we like took them and recut them, and basically as we're like cutting these things together, and it's like, oh, if we like reverse the like this clip, then instead of like looking at him, he's looking away or just like feels uncomfortable because like the character did have like a strong arrow vibe to him, even though he was like being hella creepy. Like, cut out some of the creepier parts, like this is fantastic, and then wrote like a cinematic arrow trailer for Brokeback Mountain, where Heath Ledger's character loves Jake Gyllenhaal's character, but it's you know, in a deep platonic way. And
gotcha. They go out into the woods to have, you know, deep, meaningful conversation. And
Top Gun to. Sorry, you're cutting out there.
Yeah, I know. It's my kid and his internets.
I think it's back now, maybe?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, cool. Oh, but the Top Gun one, which basically.
Okay. Technical difficulties. They happen. Thanks, Zoom. So we're talking about the Top Gun re-clipping.
Yes.
Yeah, because for your film project with the person who you found out was also Ace, and you were like, oh, interesting. Yeah.
So the first two, the Rear Window, or I forget the name, and Brokeback Mountain, they were like actual videos of some length, like, you know, 3 or 4 minutes each, and then the Top Gun one is 5 seconds, and it's just a photo of a piece of cake, and then the Take My Breath Away music playing in the background. It's a piece of cake symbol for Ace, because rather have cake than sex.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes I would rather have cake than sex, so I get with that. I understand.
Yeah.
So there we go. There, you finally, we've connected here. I get.
It was a long walk. But...
I get what it's all about. No, cake is fantastic. They write songs about cake too, so there you go.
That's true. Although I guess the Cake by the Ocean is about sex.
It's also about sex somehow. Yeah, I know. It's like,
what if it's literally about cake? I think it makes more sense. Sounds like a better time to me, but you know.
That's how me and Chelsea thought of it first. When we like heard the song, we're like, oh, it's about eating cake. This is a fantastic song. And then I saw like a BuzzFeed article and was like, oh. And then it was kind of ruined for me. Like I still enjoy the song, but it's like I really just wanted it to be about cake. And it wasn't. Oh well. Can't have it all, I guess.
Like middle school dances where like my friends listened to the radio and knew all the hip, cool, nifty songs. I'm a million years old and always have been. Listening to the song, and I'm like, this song is about sex. This song is also about sex. And guess what this song's about? Drugs and also sex.
They go hand in hand sometimes.
I guess so.
Apparently. I would not know personally, but from all the songs I've heard about it, they're obviously very much connected. Yeah.
UK drugs.
Yeah. Oh well.
Or do drugs,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to take Advil because then I don't feel pain all the time. So there you go, Dergs. That's my official statement on Dergs. Cool. So we talked about your identity. We talked about coming out. Let's see. So if there was someone watching this who was also kind of struggling with potentially being Arrow and Ace, those are the two?
Mhm.
Okay. What kind of advice could you give those people who are thinking maybe that's possibly for them, or they're seeing this and they see it and they're like, oh, like that's a thing? Like what kind of advice would you give them to push them sort of on their journey?
Absolutely. So I brought a book, or I had a book, and then I think I left it in the other room, because of course I did.
That's okay. I can link it. I will make it available.
But I guess if still figuring things out, that's okay. You're valid. I too am still figuring things out. Identities are complicated and nuanced, and sometimes it feels like you have found the thing for you, and then later something changes and you go, or is it this other something? And that's okay. So nothing wrong with that. And if you're looking for more information to try to figure that out, there's awesome online communities, tons of Facebook groups. Tumblr is a huge place for Arrow and Ace communities, like all the Tumblr. I think Discord as well. A few months back, there was this organization called TAP, with two A's. I forget the exact acronym, but they now host monthly, like, Discord kind of events around different topics for the Arrow and Ace community.
Cool.
So pretty cool stuff. So I can send you a bunch of links and stuff for.
Oh, please do. Yeah, I will link all of it. We will make it available to those who want to see it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Books too. Aven, aven.org is kind of like the site for asexuality resources and everything. And then I recently found this one. It's aromanticism.org. They have things too, but the internet is your friend and communities are your friends. So it's great to find people and, ask them your questions and see what other people's experiences are like. There's in an awesome book I just started reading called Ace by Angela Chen. It's fairly new, but fantastic, and it kind of dives into asexuality and looking at the world through the ace lens, and really part memoir and part explaining what things are, and it's awesome.
That sounds fantastic.
There's lots of great resources out there.
Yeah, more than there were at least 10 years ago, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, internet. Yeah, that's something I've always thought about, though. It's like when people created things like the internet was created for the military, so they were using it to destroy things, and it's obviously become so much more than that. And I find it super interesting to think about, it's like, did those people actually think that those sorts of things would happen when they created the internet, or is that just what it's evolved to since then? Those kind of things I think about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the guy who created the internet probably didn't think about the fact that we could be able to talk to each other about this right in the future because of the internet. If
they did, I would be very impressed. That's a big.
Did you read Kandinsky in freshman studies? Yeah, they'd be at the top of the pyramid. Freshman studies reference.
Lawrence difference.
Yeah, right up there with Lady Gaga. Because that was my classes.
The Lady Gaga?
No, but it's when we read Kandinsky, our example of the person who is above the pyramid was Lady Gaga. And because that was back when all of her music was still really weird and her music videos were whatever, and she was wearing meat dresses to award shows and stuff like that. And it was yeah, that's her. She's so far ahead of the curve that should become something else. So
she is unto her own being.
Yeah, right. Exactly. She's transcended humanity and become just Lady Gaga, and that's all there is. You can't go farther than that.
Series brought to you in part by Lady Gaga.
Yeah, this video is absolutely sponsored by Lady Gaga. I hope you realize that. Yeah, well, that'll probably get me copyright stricken or something like that. They're like, nope, done. How dare you talk about Lady Gaga on your talk? Unacceptable.
She seems cool. I think she'd be okay with it.
I feel like, yeah, she'd probably be okay with it too, but you never know. YouTube's pretty strict about these things nowadays. They send me like an email every week.
Songs, but
yeah, right. I'll just say that it was your idea, and then maybe it'll be okay. I'm sure YouTube won't come and try to get you, so
they'll have to find me first.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know where you actually live, or do they? It's a whole other video. It's a whole other video. We talk about surveillance.
Let's go. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I remember the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. Okay, so you've traveled to China a bunch. Yeah, because you're awesome. You were a Fulbright. Yeah, so you're a Fulbright scholar. So she's awesome. In case you didn't realize already, Katie's awesome. But so my big question was, how did you feel traveling to a country that you obviously are very interested in from like an academic and like a cultural standpoint, but a country that would probably frown upon your identity and your existence, I guess, because of your identity? Like, was that something that was challenging to you, or was it not something you really thought about?
My Aero experience in China was actually pretty interesting. I wouldn't say it's frowned upon per se, but it's mostly, it doesn't have the same visibility there that it even does here, and visibility here still is, not super high. But this most recent time when I went for Fulbright, I finally discovered like the Chinese term for aromantic.
Oh, okay.
Which I got really excited about. I found the one for asexual before, but this time I found aromantic, so I was able to more accurately like explain to people. I guess previous times I've been to China, that's not something that I brought up or came out to people while I was there. But at this point in my Aero journey, I had come out many times to many people, so it was kind of at that point I was coming out to people all of the time, almost too much. But so like my first few months in China, I was at a language program in Harbin, which is like way north, basically Russia, China.
Okay, gotcha.
Other Fulbrighters and stuff, and like this one night, like weekend, like a bunch of Fulbrighters go hanging out together, and then end up sitting in this big park, and then somebody's like, let's tell weird sex stories. I'm like, why is this necessary? And everybody's like, okay, go around a circle and tell your weirdest sex story. I'm like, how? Why me? Oh god. I'm like, aromantic, and they're like, oh, okay, and then like moving on, and stuff. That was exciting. But
you were clearly the highest billed Fulbrighter in that whole story right there.
I mean, it was well, hold on.
Is Josie in here watching my
yeah. Sorry. I had to take over my mom's room. She has the better internet. But, so there's a dog on the bed.
That's cool. Hi, dog.
Oh, she's
not interested in being on camera.
No, I guess not.
Yeah, she wants to escape back to mom.
Whenever there's treats. But yeah, then I guess like it was that, I mean, that was a strange experience, and things like that happen. I mean, not like that necessarily, but where very quickly become like the odd one out and like, one of these things is not like the other, which
Yeah.
doesn't happen a ton. Like, I think generally speaking, I very easily pass as straight and, you know,
Right.
assumed straight, which isn't, I don't know, it's a whole like invisibility thing, I guess. So it has its pros and cons. Like, I've never been like actively discriminated against or anything. Like, I'm pretty lucky and privileged in that sense.
Right.
But just like other times living in China, like getting hit on a lot by by people who like want a nice American friend, and like in conversation topic there and here as well, like, but like, oh, so you have a boyfriend in America, or
Right.
you want to marry a Chinese boy and then like you stay here and your Chinese will get so great, and it's like, no thanks.
Little
Or,
did you know.
yeah, I'm like, what do you mean you're not gonna marry? Like, you've not met the right person yet, or, oh, come on, I'll introduce you to a nice Chinese boy. I'm like, I'm a pass. But this time around I had language where I could then explain to like people I was closer to and cared to explain to that, no,
Those random people.
yeah, this is not something that is something I want, and this is who I am. And it was cool to be able to delve into that and explain that with Chinese instead of English, which they wouldn't have like known that word because even Americans don't know the word so
Right.
much. So
Yeah, exactly.
it was kind of cool.
Yeah. Can you say the word? Because I don't know any Chinese, so.
Yeah, sure. So the word is Uaija, and
Okay.
Chinese is very literal. So take it for what you will, but literally translate it, it means like person with no love.
Aw.
Yeah,
That doesn't describe you at all. That's
yeah.
not okay.
I mean, even the term aromantic, it's a little bit better, I guess, since it's like romantic instead of love in general.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's something that a lot of aro people, like one of the stereotypes or like things people face is getting, you know, you don't have emotions, you're a robot. Or asexual people get the, oh, you're an amoeba, you can like asexually reproduce. It's like, no, that's not what's happening here.
But how much fun would it be if you could?
Here's another Katie. Here's another Katie.
You'd get so much done.
You'd think, or we distract ourselves. When I was a kid, like I had 9 imaginary friends named Katie, and we'd have a tea party together. So knowing me and my ADD, I'd just be like, ooh, let's do something else fun. And
Yeah. Oh, there's more of us. We could do this together.
Okay, you write the papers. Like, why should I? No,
yeah.
It's fine.
That's what you're for, Katie 3. Come on.
I'm gonna head, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Because like that's another thing that I always thought about. Because I know several people who have traveled to, like my friend in high school went to move. Like what she's Indian, but she went to India on vacation, and like it wasn't necessarily anything about identity, but just like women there in general are like there are certain guidelines, and in certain areas of India, like you can't look men in the eye and like stuff like that. And she told me this story about like she accidentally looked at this guy in the eye like in a marketplace, and he like followed her and her family for like 2 miles or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Like that's terrifying. And so like, you know, I always wonder about those sorts of things with, you know, it's like, you know, when they, you know, because people are like, oh yeah, I want to go to like going to China sounds like a fantastic thing to do. Like, but it's like, do you want to like, you know, you're already like the odd one out because you're like the American girl walking around, but then like, are those things added into that is something yeah.
I mean, at least like for me again, like I can just fly under the radar and look like normal straight girl. So it's people can be like they don't know. So that at least doesn't play a huge factor in terms of safety or anything.
Yeah.
But
yeah. You just get hit on by random Chinese guys.
Yeah, it's just it happens.
I think that's more of a general female experience though, instead of just a specific like I'm in China experience.
Definitely, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely, and yeah, fun times in general.
Another whole video topic.
The female experience.
The female experience.
Yeah, but I actually like learned this yesterday when I was on the aromanticism.org, but I was trying to figure out like when the term aromantic was like first a thing. And I guess it's hard to pinpoint exactly, but basically it's like early 2000s, like.
Oh, so it's like really new.
Mention of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But then trying to look back in history and, you know, figure out like it's easier almost to figure like historical figures like were maybe like gay or some other form of queer person.
Right.
Aromantic, it's harder to tell since, you know, what marriage was, you know, at whatever time period is different from our very romance centered marriage now.
Yeah.
But they cited this example like this, now I'm forgetting the name, it's like the Golden Comb Society, I think, but in like China, one of the early dynasties, this like society of women who didn't want to marry, and so some of them would marry other women and some of them wouldn't get married, and so like married women wore their hair a certain way and some women would wear their hair as a married woman, but it's just like being self-partnered, and so it's like maybe they were arrow, but
right, it's like playing detective, but you never get to know if you were right or not, which is unfortunate. And like that's kind of, I've always find that very interesting too, because like whenever people usually do that kind of detective work, it's always with people who are like really high publicity kind of figures, like, oh, the Queen of England was so and so or whatever, like that kind of stuff. But that's the people who we have evidence about. And like the average, you know, commoner in pick a country, right? You'd never know. Like this could have been very commonplace, and there's just no writing of it because everybody was illiterate and there's no record, which is always a huge bummer.
No language for it, or maybe different language, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, like most of the writing from like, you know, back then was all about like, and we collected the church taxes again today, same amount as last time. You know, like that's all it is. And like, you don't get to see that, like, because that's something as like a history major, like really bums us, those kind of people, like my kind of people out, is like you know, you can know so much about like this one dude just because he was running England, but you don't get to know about, you know, the million people he was actually, you know, in charge of, because there's no record of anything about them. It's so frustrating. It's
imagine if they had the internet, the things we would know.
Oh, I know, it'd be so great. And then, you know, imagine like 100 years from now, the crazy things that are going to be on the internet. It'll be something new. There'll be like multiple extra things attached to it. It won't be called the internet anymore. People will laugh at like memes. Memes will become like relics. What did this mean?
What does this mean? Yes.
Yeah. What's a meme?
The future of archaeology is fascinating. You have to dig through all the tech stuff and have to know coding and everything. But
yeah. Oh, because you were an anth major. So is that
a fake anth major? I was major in everything but name.
Okay.
But I still did my project with anth. But.
Gotcha. So you're not interested in someday becoming like an anthropologist and studying cultures and moving off to do whatever?
I mean, that would be awesome. I used to think I wanted to be an archaeologist, and then volunteered for one dig and very quickly realized that that is not what I want to do. Air conditioning, and I don't like grub worms. And
yeah. Where did you dig?
My grandparents lived near St. Louis, and there's a site called Cokia Mounds.
Yes.
So I like they have ongoing digs there, so I like volunteered for part of the summer.
And you realized fairly quickly that all of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe this isn't what I want to do.
Lois Heat, no.
Yeah.
I love reading about it, but I think I might stick to reading about it.
It's okay. You can be an expert in just the knowledge without having to actually do the, yeah. Cool. Well, awesome. I don't think I have anything necessarily else to ask you about in regards to your identity. But is there anything else you wanted to like share with the internet, or since you're here on the internet?
I feel like there were other things I was going to say, but they've mostly flitted away from my brain.
I know the feeling.
That's my brain most days, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the questions you had sent me was like how to support
Yes.
support like ally.
Yeah.
And I think it's generally just true for like similar to being an ally for any group, which like listen. And if somebody like comes out to you as arrow or ace, something that happens a lot is people say, like, dismiss what they're saying, or like, oh, you've not met the right person, or oh, you'll change your mind one day, you'll want to get married. Don't do that. Trust what they're saying, and it's okay to ask questions. I mean, I think a good rule of thumb for when you're figuring out, is this an okay thing to ask? Like, would you be comfortable if somebody asked you that? Generally. And there's, ask questions. Like, everybody experiences within like the arrow ace community are so broad ranging, and it's okay to ask them like, what does like being arrow or being ace like mean to you? Ask them, how can I support you? And then do research yourself too. And also like the book I mentioned earlier, Ace by Angela Chin, is awesome for kind of looking through that like ace lens, but just with like as you're doing research and learning more about that, and then take those things and into your own life and like see this like societal how everything is romance and sex centered, and just simple phrases like saying someone is just friends, like even that puts like romance and like those relationships in this higher, more like grand place than friendship.
It's hierarchical. It's making it hierarchical instead of
just realizing things like that, and taking notice, and then together we can hopefully change that one day. But just valuing all kinds of relationships and all those different things.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for coming on and talking with me. Thank you for being willing to talk about something so personal on the internet, because not everybody would be like, oh yeah, totally, like, let's do that. And it was great to talk to you, and thank you once again. Thank you so much.
Thanks for doing this. This is awesome. And I'll send you a bunch of links, and
and I'll make sure that it's out there. The sphere of my influence shall spread your literature far and wide. And by far and wide, I mean amongst my, like, I don't know, 1,000 Facebook friends, but whatever works. Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Bye, internet.
Bye, internet.